This is a little tote that you can use using the same entrelac technique as my book, Wear Your Diamonds. This is a circular entrelac technique, and what you're going to do is follow the video that I put up about a week ago showing how to make the pillow. And you do it until you have the tote long enough. In my case, I used one row of the beginning triangles and then 3 white block rows above it and 3 of the chocolate brown blocks. Then you mark the center. You're going to put additional blocks there. You can see I started here and put additional blocks, 3 of the brown, then 2 white, and then 1 of the brown, making a triangle on each side out of the blocks instead of finishing off with the finishing triangles. Then I put an edging around it, and I've done a little video showing how to do that. You can sew a lining in if you want, and it's a cute little tote. You need to put an edging along the upper edge, and I have put the edging on the front of this tote bag, running from here to here and then up this side, and now I'm going to put the edging on the back of the tote bag along with the handle. I selected 4 needles and my carriage is on the right. My machine is set 2 tensions tighter than the tension I used for the Entrelac Tote, and I'm going to put a slip knot on the far needle, that is on the opposite side from the carriage, and I'll just hang a clothespin from the end of that yarn. Then I will also hook the yarn on the 3rd needle, so I only have it on 2 of the 4 needles. And now I'm going to knit from right to left. After knitting from right to left, I hang a claw weight on the 4 stitches. I did it this way so it'll close up a little bit later. I'm going to start on the left point. I had already edged the front of this point, and I'm going to start on the back. And I do it with the right side of the work facing me, and this waste yarn just flopped forward on the front of the work. I take my transfer tool and I'm just going to hang a couple of the loops off the other waste yarn onto the leftmost needle that's selected. I set my carriage so it will slip to the right. So I'll go ahead and I'll knit 2 rows. That's what makes the circle, is that the carriage always slips to the right. Then I'm going to pick up the first stitch from the waste yarn and put it on the leftmost needle and knit 2 rows. The next stitch from the waste yarn and put it on the leftmost needle. I don't have a weight hanging on the bag because the weight of the bag is certainly sufficient to pull it down. Now you continue working, picking up a stitch from the waste yarn each time the carriage is on the left, until you run out of waste yarn loops. Once I'm out of waste yarn loops, my next block that I'm going to pick up is actually the side of knitting and not waste yarn loops. So here's my next block. It's the lighter color, and I'm just going to pick up the loop from the top of the block. The side of knitting has a bump and a loop, a bump and a loop, and I'm picking up the loop and knitting 2 rows. Then I just pick up the next loop and knit 2 rows. And I work my way right down the side like that. On the white blocks, that didn't end on waste yarn, I'm picking up the side loops, and on the chocolate brown blocks, which in my case ended with waste yarn, I'm picking up the loops from the waste yarn. And I'm going to do this all the way from one point of the tote bag to the other point of the tote bag. Then I'll come back on camera and show you the next step. When I get to the other point, I picked up a stitch or two from the other rope, and I'm going to knit a piece of this cord about this long and then join back to the first point. That gives me a bit of a handle on my tote bag. To do that, I just go back and forth with carriage until I have the length that I desire. When I think that my rope is long enough, I will cut the yarn, leaving a long piece so that I can sew. And then I'm going to use a scrap yarn and scrap off. I take the machine off of slip so that I can make a nice piece of scrap. I'll drop that off the machine. Now, I have several steps to do to finish my tote bag. I'm going to need to remove these bits of waste yarn. I'll just unravel them. That's easy. I'm going to need to sew in all the ends that are hanging all over the place from the edges of the squares. And I'm going to sew the end of this rope to the beginning of this rope over on the one side. I'm also going to have to hand sew the bottom of my tote bag together. So I'm going to do those things, and I'll have a great little tote bag. To go over the finishing steps, I Kitchener stitched the bottom of the tote bag from the inside, and then I removed the waste yarn, just clipped and picked it away. I also sewed the end of the rope at the top over to one of the sides. I don't know which one it is anymore, but just sewed it down neatly. That edging gives me a nice finish all the way around. And that's it. My little tote bag was finished. I had a few little loose ends on the inside to put in from the ends of the Entrelac rows. Really kind of a fun project, something a little different you can do using that technique for circular entrelac in the Wear Your Diamonds book.